In the early hours of Christmas Day, 2010, the neighbors in an 8th-floor apartment in East London, United Kingdom, were suddenly woken up by a person's scream coming out of one of the apartments in the building. It was followed by loud noises from the same apartment. The scream sounded like that of a teenager, while the noises sounded like that of fallen plates and splashing of water on a surface. Few hours later, things would get more distressing, as paramedics were seen arriving in the building. Their destination was one of the flats in the building, inhabited by a couple named Eric Bakubi and Magali Bamu. The scene they witnessed inside the house made their blood run cold. Inside the flat, they found blood splattered almost everywhere, on the floor, the ceiling and the walls. They also found tools like a hammer, a chisel and knives, presumably used for the attack. In the living room, paramedics found the couple and 4 other siblings looking agitated, frightened and their clothes soaking wet. When the team stepped into the bathroom, they found the teenager, who would be later identified as 15-year-old Kristy Bamu, drowned in the bathtub. They made desperate efforts to revive him, but he was already dead. Police were immediately alerted, and 2 suspects were arrested for questioning: Eric Bakubi and Magali Bamu. What should have been a Christmas holiday for 15-year-old Kristy Bamu and his 4 siblings turned into a nightmarish ordeal, so chilling and disturbing that the judge, David Paget, who prosecuted the case, exempted the jurors on duty from jury duties for the rest of their lives because of the level of trauma gotten from assessing the gruesome and gut-wrenching evidence of the case. But before we delve deeply into this case, I would like you to please subscribe to this channel if you're new, and like this video and leave a comment about what you thought about the case. This really helps me a lot, thank you. It all began on December 20th, 2010, few days before Christmas, when Kristy Bamu and 4 of his siblings, 2 boys and 2 girls, visited their elder sister Magali Bamu and her partner Eric Bakubi to spend the Christmas holiday. Kristy and his siblings lived in Paris, and he was just 15 years old, while his elder sister Kelly was 20. The 2 other siblings were deemed too young to testify in court and could not be named for legal reasons. Magali Bamu, who was the eldest child of the 6 children, was born in 1983 in the Democratic Republic of Congo to Pierre Bamu and Jacqueline Bamu. After Magali's birth, the family moved to Paris, where her father opened a carpentry business to make furniture. The business he had hoped one day his son Kristy would inherit. Mr. Bamu and his wife, however, relocated back to the Congo to continue with his business. But Magali, 18 at the time, was left to live with her mother's niece, Phoebe, and her husband Ferdinand in East London. But Magali was ill-treated by Phoebe and Ferdinand. She was made to work like a servant, cook, clean and looked after the children of her carer. She was also not allowed to go to school. When Magali got old enough, she moved out and started living alone. She enrolled for adult classes and took up cleaning jobs to support herself. Later in her life, she would meet Eric Bakubi, and the 2 would start off a relationship. Eric was a football coach known for his talent on the football pitch and had aspirations to mentor young players. He had also dreamt of one day owning a football academy. His relationship with Magali was great and exciting at the beginning, but it soon turned abusive and violent, with Eric being very controlling of Magali's actions. At some point, he stopped Magali from putting on makeup or seeing friends. Eric was also born in the Republic of the Congo in 1983, but his mother had died of childbirth. He was 29, the same age as Magali. Both of them were 28 years old at the time the 5 siblings came for the Christmas holiday. Eric grew up with his father, and throughout his early life he was taught about a certain type of witchcraft called kindoki, which was widely believed to be responsible for child possession in the Congo. When a child is pointed out, usually by a religious leader or elders, as possessing kindoki, steps are often taken to rid the child of the evil spirit. These steps usually included beatings, submersion in water, starvation, water deprivation, and continuous prayers without food. It is strongly believed that during this period, when the child is still possessed by the evil spirit, the possessed child will be unable to feel the pain of the mutilations and beatings involved in the process of getting rid of the evil spirits. This belief is obviously not true, as proven by the events that unfold in this story. During the period when a child is suspected of being possessed by an evil spirit, the simple and innocent things that children do are often seen as an indication of possessing kindoki. This could include habits like wetting the bed and biting their nails, which are things that children innocently do, but are viewed very differently when the child is suspected of being possessed. And it could have very dangerous consequences, and one of these seemingly innocent habits will become the tragic turning point of this case. During their relationship, Eric filled Magali's head with stories of the visions he used to have as a child, visions like seeing things that were never there. Unlike Magali and her family, who willingly relocated to France, Eric's case was different. Eric and his uncle had fled the Republic of the Congo in the late 1990s to escape the Congo War. While in London, his uncle also told him stories about the kindoki until he passed on. According to Magali, throughout the duration of their relationship, Eric was more obsessed with witchcraft and began having dreams of his brother trying to kill him. In order to escape the evil spirits he believed were after his life, he moved to different parts of London to outrun the spirits, but this did not work, so he began to solicit the help of Nigerian pastors. In early 2010, Eric proposed to Magali, and this caused much excitement in the family. The siblings were very eager to visit for Christmas to get acquainted with Eric. According to Kelly, for the first few days, things were really sweet, but quickly turned sour when out of nowhere Eric and Magali suddenly accused all 5 siblings of being possessed by kindoki. Aside Kelly and Magali, the other siblings were born and raised exclusively in Paris. They knew nothing about the kindoki belief, which was common among the people born and raised in the Congo. To them, witchcraft was nothing more than a fairy tale, so they were very confused about hearing it in real life, let alone being accused of being a witch. They pleaded innocent to the accusation, but there was nothing they could do to help themselves, as anyone accused of being possessed by kindoki must go through the ritual rites to make themselves clean. Thus began the nightmare. Eric took the lead. The siblings were made to pray constantly. They were given nothing to eat and nothing to drink, and were beaten severely. At one point, Eric did something heartbreaking. He made the siblings to jump out of the window of their 8th-floor apartment to see if they could fly. Kelly said no matter how much they begged him to stop, he continued to torture them, believing they were witches and that they had come to London to kill him. While the torture continued, Magali did nothing to help but urged Eric on. In order to save themselves from more pain, Kelly and her 11-year-old sister confessed to being witches, and this worked for them because Eric stopped the beatings. However, he continued to torture Kristy. On the night of the sister's confession, he beat Kristy so severely that he fell over and started crawling on the floor, gasping for air and struggling to breathe. This served to excite Magali and Eric. They were convinced that the ritual was working and that the kindoki was trying to come out, and so they continued the beating. Due to the severity of the beating, Kristy wetted himself. This was the tragic turning point of events. Now remember earlier where we mentioned the ordinary habits that would have dangerous consequences when kindoki was involved? Well, this was the point where Kristy's life was guaranteed never to remain the same again. Eric concluded that Kristy wetting himself meant that he was the one that brought the kindoki into his house, so he turned his full attention on him. He forced the other siblings to join in beating him. The siblings were forced to restrain Kristy, while his sister Magali smashed ceramic tiles on his head, hit his hands with a hammer, used the knife to make cuts all over his body, and also used pliers to rip one of his ears. This torture continued for 3.5 days, resulting in 130 separate injuries. On the 4th day, which was Christmas Eve. Unable to take it anymore, Kristy begged his sister to let him die, a wish he was eventually granted on Christmas Day. Eric began forcing the siblings to clean the blood from their apartment, while screaming at them and playing loud music. This led to a noise complaint from a neighbor, but the complaint was never followed up. Later that night, Eric and Magali made a call to Kristy's father, and Magali said, "Dad, you've got to come and pick up the children, because they are witches and you are a witch too." Eric then cut in to say, "You've got to come and pick up Kristy because he's a witch and he's practicing witchcraft on another child of the family. If you don't, I'm going to kill him." According to Mr. Bamu, on hearing Eric's remark, he made to respond, but suddenly he heard Kristy's voice speaking in a calm, steady tone. Kristy wasn't crying. Instead, his voice was clear. He said, "Dad, come and get me, otherwise Uncle Eric will kill me." But before Mr. Bamu could react, the line was cut off. Mr. Bamu then tried to hire a car for a 6-hour journey from Paris to London, but car hire firms were closed because it was Christmas Day. Mr. Bamu then decided to make the journey the following Monday, not believing that Eric would harm the children. But before he could make the trip, Eric and Magali forced all 5 siblings into the bathroom and began dousing them with icy water as a cleansing ritual. Given the 3.5 days of torture, coupled with sleep deprivation and numerous injuries, Kristy, now mentally and physically exhausted, slipped under the water and drowned. The couple, on finding out, called the ambulance, and the paramedics arrived at the scene. They tried to resuscitate him, but he was already dead. At about 8 p.m. that night, Magali Bamu called her father and informed him that her brother was dead. The police were called to the scene. Police discovered blood all over the home, the floor, the ceiling and the walls, as well as on all the tools that were used in the attack. Eric Bikubi and Magali Bamu were both arrested for their crimes. During the trial, Eric claimed self-defense, claiming he was defending himself against Kristy because Kristy was a witch. Magali claimed Eric forced her to join in on the attack. The two were charged with murder and 2 counts charge of bodily harm. Magali continued to deny her involvement, while Eric pleaded guilty to actual bodily harm on the ground of diminished responsibility caused by brain damage, but this was rejected and the case proceeded to jury trial. The jury consisted of 7 women and 5 men. The judge in charge of the case was David Paget, and due to the gruesome nature of the evidence presented to the jurors, the majority of them were traumatized. As a result, they were exempted from serving jury duties again in their lifetime. Eric's defense claimed that his brain injury, cultural background, and schizophrenia diminished his responsibility for his actions, while Magali's defense argued that she was manipulated as she did not believe in witchcraft. Kelly, however, testified against Magali. She spoke of the lack of remorse from her sister, while she and her siblings begged her to stop, as she brutally beat and tortured them. At the trial, it was revealed that in 2008, barely 2.5 years before the death of Kristy, a 19-year-old woman named Naomi Longer nearly suffered the same fate as Kristy. Naomi and her boyfriend had gone to live with the couple at their flat in Dengham. During this period, Eric accused her of witchcraft because she was biting her nails. Magali said Eric had told her to throw everything that Naomi had touched, including clothes, plates, and a variety of things, which Magali did. Eric then proceeded to prevent Naomi from eating and sleeping. He and Magali would pray continuously with her. Naomi's hair was forcibly cut short to release the kindoki. Fortunately, she reached out to her mom and was rescued. Magali was, however, severely punished by Eric for letting Naomi leave. He blackened her eye and forced her to eat off the floor. After this, Magali went to live at a shelter, but 3 months later, without her family knowing, she and Eric reconciled, moved in together, and got engaged. During the course of the trial, the judge noted that Magali showed no sign of remorse for her actions. Eric Bikubi was eventually sentenced to a minimum of 30 years in prison, and Magali was sentenced to a minimum of 25 years in prison. According to Judge Paget, the case was sadistic, and that I believe in witchcraft no matter how genuine, could not be used as an excuse for their actions.